Gopijana Vallabha Jayagiri Varadari Jayagiri Varadari Gopijana Vallabha Jayagiri Varadari Jayagiri Varadari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jayarana Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Jayagiri Varadari Jayagiri Varadari Gopijana Vallabha Jayagiri Varadari Jayagiri Varadari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Valapa Jaya Giri Vradari Jaya Giri Vradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Vardari Jaya Giri Vardari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahamsa Privajakacharya, Asto Shri Srimad, Nitya Leela Pravista His Divine Grace, Shila Abhay, Charanaravinda, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Iskan Acharya, Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda New York Yatra Mission Dham Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Jagannath Rath Yatra Mahotsav Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I've looked at the schedule and I'm supposed to do verse 41. What is that? Okay, good. All right. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat nastapareshu badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12, titled Creation of the Kumaras and Others, verse 41 and 40 and 41. I'll read 40 and we'll put 41 on the board and chant that together. Sodasi Ukto Purva Vakvitat Vaktrat Prisi Agnistutsav Ata Arpatyat Mat Maitratrocha Vajapayam Sagosavam. All the different varieties of fire sacrifices, Sodasi, Ukta, Parisi, Agnistoma, Aptroyama, Aitaratra, Vajapaya, and Gosava became manifested from the eastern mouth of Brahma. Verse 41. Vidya, Dhanam, Tapa, Satyam, Dharmasyati, Pradani, Cha, Ashramams, Cha, Yata, Sankyam, Asrajat, Saha, Vrittibi, Vidyadanam Tapasatyam, Dharmas Yeti, Padani Cha, Ashramams Chayata Sankyam, Asrajat Saha Vrittibi, Vidyadanam Tapasatyam, Dharmas Yeti Padani Cha, Ashramams Cha Yata Sankyam, Asrajat Saha Vrittibi, Vidyadanam Tapasatyam, Dharmas Yeti Padani Cha, Ashramams Cha Yata Sankyam, Asrajat Saha Vrittibi. Ladies, please. Vidya, education. Dhanam, charity. Tapa, penance. Satyam, truth. Dharmasya, of religion. Dharmasya. Iti, thus. Padani, four legs. Cha, also. Ashraman, orders of life. Cha, also. Yata, as they are. Sankyam, in number. Asrajat, created. Saha, along with. Vritti, by vocations. Translation. Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion, and to learn this, there are four orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Rama created all these in systematic order. Please repeat. Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion. And to learn this, there are four orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahma created all these in systematic order. Purport. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The nucleus of the four social orders, brahmacharya or student life, grihastha or household family life, vanaprastha or retired life for practicing penance, and sannyas or renounced life for preaching the truth, is the four legs of religion. The vocational divisions are the brahmanas or the intelligent class, the kshatriyas or administrative class, the vaishyas or mercantile productive class, and the sudras or general laborer class who have no specific qualifications. All were systematically planned and created by Brahma for the regular promotion of self-realization. Student life is meant for acquiring the best education. Household family life is meant for gratifying the senses, provided it is performed with a charitable disposition of mind. Retirement from household life is meant for penance, for advancement in spiritual life, and renounced life is meant for preaching the absolute truth to the people in general. The combined actions of all members of society make the whole situation favorable for the upliftment of the mission of human life. The beginning of this social institution is based on education meant for purifying the animal propensities of the human being. The highest purificatory process is knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the purest of the pure. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unlinam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganathan Vidham Tham Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Shri Lalita Shri Vishaka Pitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Jayatam Surito Pangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano. Dibyad Brindaranya Kalpajumada Shrimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Shrimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Prestalabi Savyamano Smarami. In a temple of jewels underneath the desire trees of Vrindavan, seated upon an effulgent throne, the divine couple Sri Sri Radha and Govinda are served by their most confidential associates. We beg to offer our respectful obeisances unto them. Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Bamsi Bhattatatasti Taha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopi Nata Shriye Stuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vidyadhanam tapasatyam, Dharmas yeti padani cha, ashramas cha yata sankyam, asrajat saha vrittibi. Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion, and to learn this, there are four orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahma created all these in systematic order. Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Brahma as the chief engineer. So you see all these big buildings being built all around us. Right over here, you can see from the roof. Over by the Trader Joe's, the Brooklyn Tower, 93 stories tall, largest building in Brooklyn and one of the largest buildings in the whole New York City. So there's financiers, there's people who own, and then there's the engineers who put it together. So the owner and controller is the Supreme Lord Krishna, and he gives what he wants to the engineer. Already the architecture, what is it? Architect. The architecture is done and all the designs and blueprints and, cost effective and what other important things are necessary to be done. Krishna's already done that. And Brahma simply executes the Lord's will. So we're hearing of all the various manifestations, the different types of species of life. And now we're here on the Vedas are manifest. We're hearing. And here in today's verse, we're hearing of the creation of the Varnashram system. And there's a very, very interesting parallel. Education, charity, penance, and truth, or corresponding, not parallel, corresponding match. Education. Student life is meant for acquiring the best education. My dear Prahlad Maharaj, what is the best thing that you've learned from your teachers? Hiranyakashipu was expecting an answer, how to be a ruthless diplomat, how to engage in diplomacy, trickery, and all different types of political tactics to become the grand, high, and exalted mystic control monster of the whole universe. But the reply that he received, Hiranyakashipu, was, the first reply was, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, serving the lotus feet, the 9 processes of devotional service. One who is executing these is understood to have acquired the best education and is the most learned person. Vidya Vadu Jivanam. This Sankirtan movement is the life and soul of all transcendental knowledge, real knowledge. Vrindavan Das Thakur proclaims very, very loudly and enthusiastically in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, of all that is to be taught and all that is to be learned, the congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna is the summit and conclusion of all knowledge. One who is chanting the holy name is understood to be the most learned person. Parama Vidvan. Lord Chaitanya, after completing the funeral rites of Srila Haridas Thakur, Sri Namacharya, he gave benediction to all the devotees. Anyone who has chanted and danced here, anyone who has offered sand on the body of Haridas Thakur, anyone who has taken prasad here, maybe there's something else I don't remember, they will receive the benediction of Krishna very soon. Such is the potency of Haridas Thakur. When he wanted to leave this world, it was not within my power to detain him. Haridas Thakur was the crown jewel on the head of this world. Without him, the world has lost its most valuable jewel. Say, all glories to Haridas Thakur. And with mixed feelings of happiness and distress, the Lord took rest. And Kaviraj goes on to say that Haridas Thakur was the most learned person, Parama Vidvan. And what is that learning? We know the scholar and the boatman play. My dear boatman, do you know this and that ology? 25%, 50%, 75% of your life is wasted. My dear sir, do you know how to swim across the ocean of material existence and save yourself from repeated birth and death? No, I do not. 100% of your life is wasted. So one who knows the temporary situation in this material world and the process of not only getting out of this temporary situation, which ultimately the only way to get out is to reestablish oneself in pure devotional service. Only by devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, Arjuna. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Getting out of this material existence and achieving a position in the spiritual world is understood to be the most learned person. Haridas Thakur knew this process very well, and therefore he was chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 300,000 times a day. Therefore, he was the most learned person. So Srila Prabhupada, he has linked us to, he's given us the Hare Krishna movement. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is the Hare Krishna movement. The movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya, widely renowned as a scholar in his youth, left only 8 verses called the Shishastakam, which these 8 verses correspond to the 8 processes of ascent from Shraddha to Prema, and to the Lord Radha Govinda, we read in the final verses of Upadeshamrita about the Lord's Astakaliya Leela. 8 time periods of the day divided into 3-hour segments. Srila Prabhupada wanted a Kanda Harinam Sankirtan in the topmost place of ISKCON, Sri Vrindavan Dham. And this corresponds to the 8-fold period of Sri Sri Radha Govinda, Radha Shyamasundar, Krishna and Balaram in Goloka Vrindavan Dham. So for devotees to go and to participate in keeping the holy name going non-stop throughout the 24-hour period, forever and ever, Prabhupada gave instruction to the devotees who were present to open the Krishna Balaram Mandir in 1975. Those of you who have been to Vrindavan, if you go out the front gate and you're going to make a left to go down to Lowy Bazaar. There's the Bon Maharaj College on the right. And the very first property after that Bon Maharaj College, which is a big property, ends, is the Bhagavat Nivasa Ashram. It's a large property, and they've kept it purposefully forested. And Prabhupada, at that time in 1970, remarked that they have been having an Akhanda Mahamantra Harinam Sankirtan since 60 years, 1915. And Prabhupada said, I want such a 24-hour kirtan for our temple. So now that's been successfully completed, or is being done since, it was starting and stopping since 1975, but reestablishment and continuous, unbroken since 1986. Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Ayendra Prabhu, completed that, established that mission and fulfilled that desire of Srila Prabhupada, who is certainly representing Lord Chaitanya and his desire. So, by joining this Hare Krishna movement, we simultaneously, we transcend the designations of Varnashram, but at the same time, Varnashram is there to help us to actually and ultimately become fit to be pure devotees in the Hare Krishna movement and rise to the stage of pure devotional service. So, beginning of life, brahmachari, it's mentioned here that, what is it? How is it said? The beginning of this social institution is based on education, or the first instruction is meant for purifying the animal propensities of the human being. What do we have? What four things do we all have in common with the animals? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Hamsaduta Prabhu, who got an mimeographed easy journey to other planets at St. Mark's Place, 6 blocks north of 26 2nd Avenue, he read that book and said, wow, this is it, Eureka. This is it, and in his own inspiration, he got some printed, and 5,000 copies printed and started distributing, and devotees joined, more money came, and he said, wow, this is like a perpetual gold mine. You get money, the people join, and things expand. And he was thinking, as I remember thinking, like when I was 19, 20 years old, that, wow, New York City, in just 3 months, if we keep doing this, the whole city will be Krishna conscious. In the United States, it might take a year. So he was thinking like that. So later he got Srila Prabhupada's association in Montreal in the summer of 1968, and he got to be with Prabhupada's personal servant and secretary, and it was like a small quarters. And when he saw that Prabhupada woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning to start doing his translation, he just woke up. And he was just so nervous. What should I do? What should I do? And the first night, he just was extremely silent, and he just didn't announce himself, and he just stayed in his sleeping bag. And the second night, it happened again. Prabhupada turned on the light, and he woke up, and he decided to make some noise, or he turned on the light in his room, and Prabhupada came out, said, oh, you're awake. And Hansaduta said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I was so nervous I couldn't sleep. Prabhupada said, that's very good. I don't like to sleep. And you know what? I don't like my disciples to sleep either. Actually, our goal is to make eating nil, sleeping nil, sex nil, and defense nil. So that's the highest stage, of course. Nidra hara vihari kadi vijito chaitanta chaitanya. They gave up eating and sleeping, the 6 Goswamis, but purifying the animal propensities. So the preacher, the Sankirtan devotee, manifesting the holy name, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, has a very weighty task. He or she must maintain the highest level of purity always striving to advance their own individual Krishna consciousness and simultaneously meeting the general public who are invariably on the animal platform of life. They think eating, sleeping, and certainly sex, and defending their false ego and their so-called foolish sense of individuality is the goal of life. That's why we see when untrained or the general public, they see us wearing a dhoti, wearing a sari, we have shaved head, and we seem to be, it's very strange to them, and they'll there's a knee-jerk reaction that's easily perceivable that they're like laughing, ridiculing, or just looking down on us, and just to maintain their the illusion that they're okay. I'm okay. That's all right. I'm all right. So, student life is meant for acquiring the best education. Household family life is meant for gratifying the senses, provided it is performed with a charitable disposition of mind. Prabhupada had initiated and married a young couple, husband and wife, and on a morning walk the next day, the husband was asking what people in general would think would be a good question. How should you relate with your wife? That we have to control the senses, but how can we show love like that? And Prabhupada said, Grihastha life means that before you take your meal, you go outside and you call very loudly, is anyone hungry? Please come and take food. And the young man didn't get it, and he asked again, and then Prabhupada said the same thing. Grihastha life means that before you take your meals, so the idea is that the general tendency towards attraction between the sexes, male-female relationship, is very, very necessary in the sense that it leads to children, and the human race goes on. And more importantly, or within that importantly, is that it is a chance for the Suchinam Srimatam Gehe, Yoga Brasta Bijayate. And even more than that, more than just the purified person, if there in this endeavor there is no loss. It goes in your spiritual bank account. So if you finish to 10%, you'll be born with a 1% bonus in the next life. At 11%, what to speak of 75, 80, 90%. And in the case of very exalted personalities like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it is not within my power to renovate your teachings. They've been so much, my dear Lord Chaitanya, obscured by the Sahajiyas and the Mayavadis and the impersonalists. You must send me someone from your personal staff. Hence, Om Vishnu Pad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Raya Vishnu. He had a mother and father. He came into this world as a baby, born in March. In July, when the Rath Yatra, he's 4 months old. The Rath stops at the house. Miraculously, mysteriously, the garland of Jagannath comes down. Blessings upon the child. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The vocational... Retirement from household life is meant for penance, meant for rising above and going beyond. the habits one had in one's younger days and becoming more fixed in by having time in retired life. You don't have to be so much materially involved to develop knowledge and realization of Krishna's relationship with you and with all living entities. Penance for advancement in spiritual life and renounced life is meant for preaching the absolute truth to the people in general. So again, right from the start of coming into this Hare Krishna movement, we're given the duty, we're given the responsibility, we're urged to preach the absolute truth to the people in general. Prabhupada was asked one time by a disciple trying to understand Varnashram, that if one's initiated as a Brahmin and then he falls down and then he comes back, shouldn't he be just designated as a Sudra and he has to work his way back up, maybe to get reinitiation? And Prabhupada said, that is not for you to judge. So that was the whole lesson of the Ajamil rescued by the Vishnu Dutas. Prayaschitta and atonement have nothing to do with pure devotional service. And Ajamil's devotional service was simply calling his son Narayan, thinking of not the Supreme Lord Narayan, but his son named Narayan. One time a devotee mistook, he called the name 3 times. The Prabhupada said, why 3 times? Once is enough. One name is more than enough. So how powerful is calling the name of the Lord, preaching His glories purely every day of one's life? Srila Prabhupada visiting with Radha Damodar, I think it's 1975, Chicago, they were reading about the austerities of Vishvamitra Muni. 60,000 years of austerities and penances. And of course, Vishvamitra Muni, he had some trouble. So Prabhupada said, he meditated for 60,000 years in the Satya Yuga, so that's correspond to 60 years of our life if we live 100 years in Kali Yuga. He said, but the same result that Vishvamuni got in 60,000 years, you can get on Sankirtan in just a few days. And everybody just roared, Hari Bol. So we should keep these things in mind, that Srila Prabhupada's movement is a movement of pure devotional service, and we should always strive for the highest ideal and not think that we need braces or crutches when we actually have the power to walk and even run without it. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and the pure devotees, a lame man can cross over the mountains. The dumb can speak eloquent poetry, and the blind man can see the stars in the sky. Hare Krishna. Vidya Dhanam Tapas Satyam Dharmas Yeti Padani Cha Ashramams Cha Yata Sankyam Astrijat Saha Vritibi. Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the 4 legs of religion. And to learn this, there are 4 orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahma created all these in systematic order. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Harinamananda Prabhu.
These 4 things of education, charity, penance, and preaching the truth. Seems that it can be executed in all ashrams.
Yeah.
As a devotee, practicing devotee. So I was just wondering, as a practicing devotee, obviously education you elaborated, maybe charity and penance, and obviously the truth you also elaborated. So maybe more charity and penance. How is that as a devotee? How do we execute that?
Fourth chapter of the 9th canto, the austerities of Maharaj Ambarish, and he did elaborate deity worship. And Prabhupada said, you worship the deity, rise early in the morning, you have to prepare dresses, you have to perform so many artiks, cook so many offerings, continue the routine work. Similarly, in this Krishna consciousness movement, our activities are on preaching. We have to prepare literature. We have to go door to door, preach to atheistic men. All of these penances and austerities are necessary, and they lead to the ultimate goal of life, purification. So Prabhupada wanted us to be focused that our penance is to preach pure devotional service. We don't have to. It's one devotee went to Mayapur, I'm just going to chant, however many rounds a day. And probably after some time he became restless and went away. So Prabhupada writes in the 7th canto, Narada Muni describing one must visit all the various holy pilgrimage places if one wants to advance in spiritual life. And Prabhupada, he gives the translation to one of the Sanskrit words describing this by Narada Muni's statement there in the Bhagavatam, Instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira. All the temples of the Krishna consciousness movement, and then he lists, London, Paris, Stockholm, Sydney, New York, Tokyo, and goes on to say that the place where the deity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present and Brahmins are present worshiping them by the principles of truth and religion are the best places to advance in spiritual life. And he goes on to say that one should visit all the temples of the Krishna consciousness movement. Now, the Istadev Murti, the worshipful deity installed in a particular city or location, called by the pure devotee, Jayadvaita Maharaj, in his own words, was not a big gun. On a morning walk, he was able to go in Los Angeles. He took sannyas just a year after Prabhupada's departure in 1978. So anyway, he goes on a morning walk. This is in Venice Beach, in California, and he says to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, since you're here in New Dwarka, the deities, they look very, very beautiful. And what would you think a response back would be? Oh yes, they're so wonderful and such is doing so well. Prabhupada was very grave and silent for some time, and he spoke these words, yes, that is my anxiety. What does that mean? And then he explained that I'm here, everything is good. After I go, will you maintain the same standard and the same level of enthusiasm? So that is great penance and austerity, maintaining Prabhupada's temple now 45 years after his departure. And you'll pardon me, but we'll have to put in a plug for New York. Is Pancharatna Prabhu here? Let's see, I'll tell the story as best I remember it. You know how devotees would sometimes try to put words in Prabhupada's mouth, but it would never work? Prabhupada, what will please you the most? Book distribution. you know? Atlanta, 1975, the whole Radha Damodar is there. And Prabhupada said, if you love Krishna. So, Pancharatna Prabhu, he was brought from New York to Mayapur early on, and I forget the exact circumstance, but Prabhupada, isn't Mayapur your most important project? And Prabhupada said, no, you've misunderstood. New York is my most important project. Praghosh Prabhu, who was a book distributor here in New York in 1976, he visited Prabhupada in Potomac, Prabhupada's visit to Washington, D.C., which was just prior to his coming here in July 1976. Prabhupada was there for the bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the founding of the United States, which in 4 years we can celebrate the 250th, whatever that means. And Praghosh, he really wanted to meet Prabhupada, and he came back from the airport. It was late at night, well, it was like evening, and they're making a reconstruction there now, but there was the best house on the property, and there was a pool. And Prabhupada was like relaxing by the pool area, and Praghosh Prabhu and another devotee came, and Prabhupada came and said, oh, you're coming back very late. Where have you been? We've been distributing books, Srila Prabhupada, you know, at the airport. Oh. And Prabhupada was very kind. He invited them in. How many books did you do? And Praghosh was partnered that day with Vaishya Shekhar Prabhu. Between the two of us, we did, I forget the number, it was maybe something like 150 big books, you know. And he told how he gave to one service man and an army man, he gave 4 books and he gave $80. And Prabhupada said, oh, $80, that's a very handsome profit. And then went on to say, you know, are you hungry? Well, and it was the first thing from his mind, he's hungry, but he was hungry. Yes, Srila Prabhupada. And he called, I think it was Palika, she was serving as the cook. Give them some prasadam. Well, Srila Prabhupada, we don't have any prasadam left. Nothing? We only have ice cream. Do you like ice cream? What flavor? Prabhupada asked Palika. Mango. Prabhupada said, mango ice cream. And then Prabhupada asked Praghosh, are you here in Washington, D.C.? No, Srila Prabhupada, I stay in New York. And Prabhupada said, I started in New York. like he didn't, like everybody doesn't know. And Prabhupada says, are you coming to Rath Yatra? And Praghosh says, Srila Prabhupada, I wouldn't miss it for the world. And Prabhupada went on to say, New York, the most important city in the most important country, and Fifth Avenue, the most important, Fifth Avenue, the most important street in the most important city in the most important country in the world. So this is a real all hands on deck mission. And there were some setbacks. We're going forward. It was the sale of the 55th Street Temple, which Prabhupada emphatically forbade, but anyway, somehow or another. So now this property, which we moved into in 1982, the value, I won't say the numbers, I'll just give the proportion, is about increased in value in 40 years, about 130 to 150 times more. And you can see why all the urban development all around us and so much money being put here. So what was once a scary and questionable place is now very acceptable and even desirable place to be. All right, so we've gone over time. We have breakfast downstairs, and Harinam today will be ecstatic leading up to Rath Yatra. Thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.